All right, guys, we have some data and some statistics coming in to see like if the Bitcoin drop will actually stop. And we got good news, but there is a sliver of worry. And I'll tell you why. First of all, to the news. The outflows from Grayscale were only slightly above $500 million today. In fact, Bitcoin ETF from Grayscale had 515 million in outflows today from Eric Balchunas. Now, why is that good news? You're like, $500 million? Are you crazy? That's going to dump us like crazy. But the outflows from Grayscale are slowly going down, folks. Before Monday this week, like basically very early Monday morning, the outflows were over 700 million. Yesterday, they were 640 million. Today, they're only 515 million. They are coming down by over 100 million a day. That's a lot. So they're slowly going like downward. Now, it's been said by Balchunas that the big nine, which is BlackRock, Fidelity, plus the other scraps, basically, can absorb maybe $500 million a day. So the last 2 days, they were at minus 200 something million and minus 100 something million. Today, they might be pretty even. Now, I don't really know if their buying pressure is going to be constant. And remember, like selling a spot, buying OTC, that might still result in a negative flow. It is 12:53 a.m. January 24th is the time of this particular recording. This video will go out in about 2 or 3 hours. By that time, if Bitcoin hasn't started to fall, like we might actually be looking at an equilibrium in terms of inflows and outflows, and there might not be a net. If it's still going down, that also means the amount that BlackRock and Fidelity are buying might be getting a little less, not by quite as much as Grayscale, the outflows are coming down. And we'll have to see how much it drops over total. If I wake up tomorrow and it's still around $40,000, that might mean the dumping is stopping at least temporarily because the inflows have actually equaled the outflows, or maybe the inflows are going to be greater than the outflows. Remember, the FTX stuff was half of the Grayscale dump, and I still think they're dumping part of that right now. They sent a lot of it to Coinbase. I think they're directly still dumping part of that right now because it's only been 2 days or so. And they're trying to, they're getting those customers their money back. But as that faucet has turned off, the outflows have actually started coming down. And as the Grayscale outflows start coming down, as less people want to switch and less people are selling off the FTX, the inflows should take over the outflows. So, if this keeps coming down, like, 500 million today, 400 million tomorrow, 300 million the next day, I definitely think the sell-offs you're going to see are going to be smaller and smaller as time goes on. As of this recording, Bitcoin has not started to go down yet, but it might start to go down at any time within the next couple of hours, and we'll see how much of it goes down. If it only goes down at max by $300-400, the sell-off today wasn't nearly as severe as the last 2 days, and you're seeing kind of like the paring down of the sell-off. And like yesterday's sell-off, we recovered entirely from. Right now, $40,000 is actually acting as a resistance, I think. But I think we'll actually break past that if we don't have another sell-off from Grayscale. And since FTX is now out of the picture, and by the way, like I said, FTX would actually sell regardless of what's actually happened. I think a big obstacle is out of our way. I will keep you reported every day on like how much outflows are until outflows get to be very, very little. Grayscale is being stubborn. They're not reducing their fees. But, a lot of those outflows are going directly back into BlackRock and Fidelity, whereas the FTX outflows are just being liquidated. So we might finally have gotten to the end of that kind of sell-off. At least I hope so. Not really sure why that batch of coins always gets sold off at like 3 in the morning. Don't ask me why, because I have no idea, but it always does. Now, what is the bit of worry if this is happening? Where else are the sells going to come from? Is it the miners? No, it is MT Gox. We've been worrying about this for a while. They're finally getting the steps in, and they might actually keep us selling like to the halving or even past the halving if they start distributing. Now, that depends on if the people they distribute to are going to sell Bitcoin immediately. If most of them decide to hold, we might not have this problem. but they're going to have some they're going to have like some in kind and some cash payments. I heard a lot of the payments were going to be in BTC and BCH. The BCH ones we really don't care about, but all of the payments in total about $33 billion, which is more than Grayscale actually has. So if all of them sell off, we might be in a lot of trouble. However, with the MT Gox thing for the cash repayments, I have a feeling some of it's already been liquidated. They might have been liquidating the last few days as well, along with Grayscale. So I'm not really sure how that's going to play out, but if they expect to start distributing it before the first half is actually up, and that might be like what keeps us basically like grounded until June or so, until the second half of this year. If that theory is true, I don't really know if that theory is true or not. I don't know if people are just going to immediately sell upon getting their proceeds. But MT Gox is hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin, and that could present a serious problem for us. But, that's really hypothetical right now. We don't really know what's going to happen to that, and we don't really know if they're going to keep delaying distribution. I do believe, the deadline has actually been pushed to November of this year, basically, but they're probably going to distribute before that. So that's the big problem that I'm seeing right now. And I'm hoping that does not come back to haunt us, but it might. And the thing is, if it does and we go way down, it's more chance for you to actually buy up, obviously. I don't really want it to go down, but if you want cheaper Bitcoin, that's essentially your hope that, the MT Gox stuff has to have mass liquidation. Bitcoin goes down to 20,000 or 30,000, and then everyone gets to buy up. I don't think it's that likely. I don't think you're going to see a huge sell-off from the Mt. Gox stuff. It's an old thing, and I think some people will just hold on to it. Plus, I think they've already liquidated some of it. So it might not be a huge effect. They've had Mt. Gox distributions, early distributions before, and it's not really affected price all that much. So I don't expect this one to affect all that much. The only surefire thing is the FTX stuff, and that looks like it's mostly over. And Grayscale, outside of that, it's paring down on how much they're transferring and how much they're selling. So at least that part is over. So if you're looking for cheap Bitcoin right now, cheap altcoins, right now is the time to pounce. If you wait a couple of days, it might actually start going up. And once it starts going up, it might be hard to clamp down on. We might get to a situation where we get to 50K again, and then Mt. Gox starts dumping. But the Mt. Gox thing is much more situational. It's much more theoretical than FTX, because the people, when they get their Bitcoin, they don't actually have to sell immediately. Whereas FTX had no choice. They had to sell no matter what because they needed that money. And the 48K just gave them the perfect opportunity to actually start selling. And then Grayscale is kind of dumb by not lowering its fees and basically screwing its own fund. But I don't think people will sell out of Grayscale entirely. I think before they do that, Grayscale will actually lower their fees on their own fund. But the outflows are stopping, and Grayscale is one of the more trusted ones. It's been there for a long time. So they might be able to retain more of their customers as well. So that's kind of what's going on right now. It's going to be extremely interesting over the next couple of days to see what Balchunas actually does report on the dollar number of outflows of Bitcoin through this entire time. Because if it stays at 500 million for several days, then we got problems. But if it goes down to 500 million, 400 million, 300 million, 200 million, if it slowly goes down and eventually comes out to be even, then we get those positive flows in for the other Bitcoin funds. And remember, those Bitcoin funds are projected to have about $150 billion when it's all said and done. But that's going to come very, very slowly over a couple of years and not very, very quickly over over a couple of days, obviously. If Mt. Gox actually ends up dumping all $33 billion worth of Bitcoin that's been dispersed, we're going to have serious problems. But $33 billion is still less than $150 billion, but it will take many, many long months to actually recover that. So that's kind of the thing that we're actually afraid of. That's what a lot of the people that want really low prices are actually hoping for. I don't think that's going to happen, but I wouldn't actually count out the entire possibility of that happening right now. But I do think for sure that the FTX stuff is definitely paring down. And I do think this phase of a sell-off will actually end soon because of that. And I'm really looking forward to Grayscale seeing less than $100 million worth of outflows. And I think that's the time that we might actually start going up. And that might come as early as next week. Right now, like 515 million, I think that's kind of like the net inflow outflow like even mark. So hopefully we don't actually dump in a couple of hours or before this video goes out. And when I wake up tomorrow morning, I really don't want it to actually like be dumped. If I see it's actually stabilized, I'll be definitely more sure of the market then. So that's the news for today. Let me know what you think. Like and subscribe, hit that bell notifications button. Thank you and have a nice day.